We are ready.
I'm ready. Terrific. Good morning, everyone. It's just a little past 8:30, so we'll begin the April 25th Criminal Justice and Public Safety meeting. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of the prior meeting. Ask committee member Supervisor Blake. Second by Supervisor Brammer. Thank you. All those in favor? Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to move to executive session the first thing this morning.
Someone abstained, so we just need to make sure that.
Somebody abstain? Oh,
I did. I was.
So we need to make
oh,
sure.
I'm
that-
sorry. I didn't see. So Supervisor McDevitt made the motion. It was seconded by Supervisor Brammer. It was abstained.
Right. My apologies. I wasn't here.
Okay. And I see we have Supervisor Driscoll online. I think you're on mute, but that's fine. Okay. We move to executive.
I'm sorry. Sure, he's voting in favor of the next.
Supervisor Driscoll, you're on mute.
Yes. Yeah, you didn't give me. No, I didn't. No, I wrote.
All right, now we've got you. Now we've got you. Were you voting in favor of the approval of the minutes?
Yes.
You did, okay.
Yes.
All right, now I'll seek a motion to move to executive session. Motion by Supervisor Brammer, second by Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion, question, all in favor? Opposed? Thank
Aye.
you. Executive session. Okay. All right, we'll move back to our regular agenda. We just came out of executive session on a personnel matter. We've already approved the minutes, so the next order of business will be for the probation.
Okay, you're going first.
Wait,
Got it.
wait.
Yes?
That's okay.
Sorry. Agenda item.
I have two agenda items under public defender.
I know, but we have.
You want to do Bob first? That is fantastic. There you go.
Good morning. Good morning. So we've got 4 requests. I'll read the first one. It looks like they're all related, but I think we'll do them individually. To enter into an agreement separately with 3 individuals, the White House, Maureen Buckley Johnson and Jameson Bouchard as re-entry ambassadors in the amount of $900 apiece for the term 4/1/22 through March 31st, 23 regarding the Y Reconnects grant. Yes, sir.
Yes, actually, as you indicated, the four the agenda items have to do with grants for the Y Reconnects grant. The first one is re-entry ambassadors, who people have been through the system, where we use their knowledge to help better ourselves. So we had them last year, and this is second year of the grant. I'm sorry.
Okay, the motion to move this for Supervisor Diamond. Second Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Second request is similar, enter an agreement with Mediation Matters in the amount of $6,100 for the term April through March of 2023 regarding the Y Reconnects grant.
Again, yes, we had Mediation Matters last year. We contracted them. They provide restorative practices, community circles, girl circles, and different type of restorative programs for us.
Thank you. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Brammer, second Supervisor Diamond. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Third request to enter into an agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension as a Y Reconnects parent ambassador in the amount of $49.99 for the term April 22 through March 23.
Yes, again, we had Cornell last year. We're looking for them to contract again. They coordinate their different parenting programs and provide services and consultation to the individuals in our system who need parenting classes, which is quite a few.
Motion to move this forward. Supervisor Bramer, second Supervisor Diamond. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Next is to enter an agreement with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of the Southern Adirondacks in the amount of $720 for the term April 22 through March, I think that should be 23. It says 22
Correct.
on here, regarding the Y Reconnects grant.
Yes, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, we do a lot of work with them with their mentoring program. Again, we had them last year. We're looking for them to be a consultation for us regarding this grant.
Thank you. Motion to move this request forward.
I'll move this one and the next one about the correction.
Do them both together.
Yeah.
Let me just read that one. Amend the contract, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Southern Adirondacks, Resolution 459 of 2020 to reflect that it states the amount not to exceed $22,140 annually, local match, the amount of $8,413 for term commencing January 1, 21, so long as grant funding is provided for the same. So the request to move items 4 and 5 together by Supervisor Bramer, second Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carry. Any discussion items?
I just have one I'd like to mention. We partnered with Washington County Alternative to Incarceration Program to do a rural justice grant. We had done one about 5 years ago. We had the opportunity again. We applied with Washington County. They're the lead, so all the money goes through them. So it's relatively easy for us, but that gives us the opportunity to do community restoration projects, different type of incentives, different type of preventive education classes in the schools for our kids, and a whole litany of things. So the partnership with the Alternative to Incarceration Program in Washington County, we've done a lot of work, and we had the opportunity for this grant, so we took it. So it's a 2-year grant, about $75,000. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you for being with
Thank
us. We appreciate it. All right. Next Office of Public Defender. Marcy, are you requesting executive session? for
No,
this?
we did that.
Okay.
We did executive session.
Okay, so we have 2 requests. The first is a, excuse me, notice to intent to fill a vacant position for the Assistant Public Defender, grade 9. Yes,
Regarding that, the person who was in that position, I promoted to the coordinating assistant public defender position. So I have this position open and I would like to fill it at the bottom line pay schedule.
motion to move this request for Supervisor Diamond. Second Supervisor McDevitt. Question, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second request to increase salary of non-unit position of the first assistant public defender.
Yes, my first assistant public defender is not at the top pay line for the activities that he does and his duties that he does. He does supervisory work and I am moving to move him into the higher pay grade. Also on that pay scale, the funding would come from ILS funding. It's grant funded. So the county would not be putting up the funding for the additional money.
And when, if this is approved, when would it take effect? As soon as the board approves it or in the next
Obviously, it
budget
would be
cycle?
subject to the board, the full board approval.
Supervisor Bramer?
Well, I am sure this is necessary to bring the salary up in line with the person's duties. We have established this procedure now where we are going through budget for position grade increases.
But I have been given, it's my understanding, having reviewed the rules from the county administrator, that if this was an email from April 21st of this year regarding non-union salaries. The Personnel Committee recently discussed what the procedure ought to be if a non-union salary is to be increased in mid-year outside the budget process. It was agreed that if a department had wanted to advocate for such a change, the request should be brought to the committee's head reporting committee, which is where you are. And then I guess I could ask for executive session to discuss the request. If you'd like to, I would be requesting executive session to discuss this request.
Supervisor
Let me
Brammer.
just clarify then, because this happened with another employee and we brought it to our oversight committee and it went to personnel and finance did not take it up. They referred it back to budget. So if that's what we're doing, then that's what we're doing. And we basically overrode what is written in that policy.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. I think it's important at this point in time with so much confusion around this process to make a referral over to budget to be consistent with the practices recently, even though what you stated there was what was established, it was then changed. And so perhaps getting a memo out to department heads about that would be appropriate, but until such time, perhaps it should just be a referral with our support, if that's how the committee feels, or but somehow make its way over to budget.
I think there's some confusion about the budget committee's role. We initially had a conversation at a budget committee meeting regarding if someone had a request, if a department had a request to change a salary during the year outside of the budget process, that the process would be what Marcy just read. You go to the oversight committee and then up to personnel and finance and then to the full board. So the budget committee was not part of that.
Supervisor Brammer.
I deferred.
Supervisor Seaver.
No, I'm feel free to add on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that is a correct statement. However, when that process was followed, it was the determination at the personnel and finance meeting that that procedure is not something they were supportive of, that it did need to go back to budget. And the requests that were made at that time were referred once again back over to the budget committee. I don't see a budget meeting on our calendar for this month, so maybe next month that should be. Is there one? Is there a budget? I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah. Meant the
so
salary schedule.
perhaps one could be
You have to do the
called,
budget.
or I'm not sure, but I do think that in the spirit of trying to be as consistent and
She
fair
doesn't need it.
to all of these requests, that we follow the same procedure. And unfortunately, it's just not what it was spelled out to be.
And again, I'm just trying to go with the procedures that I
know.
have been given, because you know that I like to follow the rules, so you know that I'm following what I'm directed to do.
Supervisor Brammer.
I'm happy to refer this over to the budget committee. I'm supportive of the change.
Okay.
Again, I'm not understanding the referral to the budget committee. That hasn't happened.
Supervisor Brammer.
Okay, Ryan. Chairman, I'm sorry, Chairman.
Go ahead.
This happened very recently with another employee who wanted to increase their grade. As Supervisor Seaver already said, the change was not supported by the personnel committee, the process. The personnel committee wanted to refer it back to the budget committee for a mid-year change in grade. That's what we're doing with that person. That's what we should do with this person. It has to be consistent. And I understand that there may have been a memo that went out and Marcy doesn't know about the follow-up change in procedure. That's not your fault, Marcy. at all.
I'm good.
That's how I understand it.
That's not my understanding. I don't think there was a referral to the budget committee. The process was oversight committee, personnel, finance. It failed in personnel. So the budget is, the regular process for salaries during the budget. And I thought that's what the personnel committee decided, that this should go back into the next year's budget process.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. I just think given the fact that we do have so much of this on YouTube now, I'm not sure if that was done in executive session or not, that discussion. I hope so, if it was about a particular person's salary. But the decision was very clear from the committee at the time that this is not the procedure that they want to follow, even though it was set up, that it was supposed to now go back to budget. And there were requests from other supervisors working with some department heads as it related to different salaries. And I know that same information was conveyed to them to go back to the budget committee. And I think having the support of this committee to that speaks volumes. But if we're going to talk about the why that occurred, then I think we should be in executive session to discuss the particular performance of an individual who was the impetus behind.
All right, well, is there a motion to move this request to the budget committee?
Oh my God.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seaver to move this request to Budget Committee. Second, Supervisor Bramer. Discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Carried. Supervisor Driscoll, did you have a comment?
no, I just, I made a no, vote.
All right, apologize for the delay.
That's right.
All right,
Thanks.
it's carried, motion carried to move it to budget. Thank you. Thank you, Marcy, for
Thank you very much.
being with, anything else? Any other discussion items?
No, but there's hands up, so I'm stopping.
Okay, Supervisor Seaver.
Just in the spirit of us wanting to follow procedures, could we just have a brief synopsis of any action or recommendations that may have taken place during the executive session? Because when we came out, we didn't report on executive session.
I just made a brief comment that we concluded the executive session on a personnel matter.
Right. I believe that it was the intent upon exiting the executive session that the committee had made a recommendation and were prepared to move forward with the candidates and make that recommendation at the personnel meeting.
Okay.
Put on the public record. If hopefully that's correct, because I've already said it.
Yes, you said it. You did say it correctly without relaying the candidate name, just that we're moving forward. Okay. So I don't have to repeat what you said.
Thank you.
I'm reading the minutes of the March 31st, 2022 Personnel Administration Higher Education Committee. A discussion ensued, following which Mr. Thomas called the question and the motion for a referral to the Budget Committee for an evaluation of those non-union employees identified in a spreadsheet whose salary was not currently at the increment associated with their years of service with the county, that was slightly separate, although parallel to the individual performance evaluations failed due to lack of majority vote. So the conversation was had in personnel as to bringing it to through Budget Committee, and it failed.
Supervisor Seaver.
Just as a point of order, we voted and referred on this. Furthermore, those are summary minutes. I would suggest watching the YouTube.
Agree. Any other comments? All right, move to the next
Thank you.
agenda.
Thank you, Marcy.
Next agenda item is the Sheriff's Office. Morning, Sheriff. Thank you for being with us. We've got, I believe I've got the latest agenda. There's 6 request items.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first one is enter an intermunicipal agreement with the County of Saratoga to share police and related law enforcement resources, personnel, and equipment. Yes, sir.
Yes, this was introduced last month, and there was discussion about an assurance or language that addressed compensation. We did a review. The county attorney's office conducted a review, and they were satisfied that the agreement covered Warren County sufficiently. So this is just a return of the same request from last month to have an agreement for shared services between Warren County, Saratoga County, specifically our sheriff's office and Saratoga County Sheriff's Office.
Okay, very good. Motion to move this forward. Supervisor McDevitt. Second. Second, move this request forward. Supervisor Driscoll.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. On the discussion or question, Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. During your discussions with Saratoga County, my question would be, did you inquire with the City of Glens Falls Police Department, which is in Warren County, to have an intermunicipal agreement?
Between our sheriff's office and the city of Glens Falls?
Yes.
No,
Why not?
it's our home county. We don't need an agreement to work within our home county. It's our jurisdiction, so we can provide services without any memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
We have a specific agreement with Glens Falls City Police Department for our emergency response team. You have members
Yep.
of your city police department that perform specific services there.
Okay.
But outside of that, it's our home county, home city. We share services.
Okay. What services do you share other than that?
Other than the city of Glens Falls or other
No,
than
no.
ERT?
ERT, other than ERT.
Going by specific areas of our sheriff's office, What's most obvious to the public are our police officers, so the road patrols work within the city of Glens Falls. They provide support and backup to the city of Glens Falls police officers. Our narcotics enforcement unit works hand in hand with the detective sergeants in the city of Glens Falls. Drug operations move through in and out of the city of Glens Falls into Warren County, into contiguous counties, so we provide that service. Moving into our correctional facility, we house a number of inmates that come out of the city of Glens Falls, provide transports for inmates from the city of Glens Falls. In our civil office,
Does your department get assigned road patrols in the city? of Huntsville?
we don't have assigned zones or sectors within the city of Glens Falls, no. And I don't believe we've ever been asked to provide that service.
Okay, any other questions? Discuss Supervisor Seaver.
Just dawned on me, we have 4 Glens Falls supervisors on this committee. I'd like to hear from the county attorney's office. I know that in watching the minutes from reading and watching the video from the last meeting, while I wasn't in attendance, I have an interest in this and would certainly like to hear over the last month what your update from your office is regarding this contract and the questions that were posed at the last committee meeting.
Thank you. County Attorney Alman has looked into the matter, has spoken with Supervisor Diamond, I believe, and has reviewed the contract and is okay with the provisions that are set forth in that. Did I answer your question?
Not thoroughly. I believe there were some specific questions that were asked of it at the last committee meeting with a potential. It's fine. I can abstain from this vote and I can follow up with the county attorney.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, discussion? All right, there was a motion by Supervisor McDevitt, second by Supervisor Driscoll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Same.
Abstain?
Yeah.
One abstain. Carry, okay. The second request is approval to write off debt in accordance with resolution number 240 of 2019. Here,
Yes, we received notification from the treasurer's office that there was a grant that was not reimbursed, that was due to a late submission, dates back to 2018. And in order to write this off as debt, we need to follow through this process in accordance with resolution 240 of 2019.
motion move forward. Supervisor Bramer. Second, Supervisor Diamond. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Third request is approval to apply for a New York State Sheriff's Association COVID-19 Detection and Mitigation Grant. Sure.
Yes, we had a team from the New York State Sheriff's Association visit our correctional facility on April 13th. The purpose of their visit was to do an inspection and make determinations and provide a report and recommendation to our sheriff's office for enhancements, improvements that we can make for detection and mitigation of COVID. This grant would allow us to purchase goods, services, whatever they recommend that would help us in keeping COVID out of our facility in the amount of almost $82,000. We're just requesting the ability to apply for. And then item number 4 would be to set up the expense and revenue codes for this grant if so approved.
All right, so we'll move items 3 and 4 combined. Motion by Supervisor Diamond, second Supervisor Seaver. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Fifth request, amend the education reimbursement policies and procedures for all Warren County Sheriff's Office employees. Sure.
Yes, currently our employees have the benefit of a 50% reimbursement for employment-specific tuition reimbursement. And we came to learn that other employees of the county had been received an enhanced benefit, and we're just asking that the members of our sheriff's office receive the same benefit.
Move this request forward. Supervisor Diamond, second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion, questions? Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question for the sheriff. It was my understanding that when this was changed last year, we had a full resolution that came through the board about reimbursement of tuition and expenses. And it spelled out very specifically what would be eligible and what wouldn't be, but that it would apply. And Jackie, I see she left, but and perhaps our chairman knows the process. I mean, it went through, we've been modifying the different union agreements. I know recently a couple of those were approved. Has there been a problem with the agreements with the sheriff's office that your employees aren't being afforded the same identical language that we've passed a resolution last year for?
The only resolutions that I'm aware of, and I may be misspeaking, refer to non-bargaining unit employees and the CSEA. So our collective bargaining units in the sheriff's office, this modification has not been made for our members. And we're just asking for them to receive the same. So I think there was an MOU specific to the CSEA. I think the process would be the same to establish MOUs for each collective bargaining unit within the sheriff's office. And it just has not
Right.
happened.
If I can follow.
Sure.
Sheriff, I think that process is taking place. I mean, I recall seeing some information from the HR department that, and perhaps the personnel officer or the chairman of the board can speak to it a little bit better, but there was never an intention that your employees wouldn't be eligible for any of this. It was supposed to be immediately upon that resolution and working with the unions, but for those that aren't in the union, it should have taken effect right away.
I can only speak to what was shared with me, and the understanding that I have is perhaps maybe the non-bargaining unit employees in our sheriff's office would receive this benefit for the 2021 resolution that was passed. But for any member who is part of a collective bargaining unit, that they would not have the same benefit. There would have to be a specific MOU to each one of their collective bargaining agreements.
Okay, I think, could we get an update, please, from Jackie on this? Because I think this is, oh,
Is correct. Our policy does say that. Our policy for our county employees, we had to go back. I don't know if you remember, we did a separate resolution to amend the CSEA agreement.
right.
So we would need to do the same thing for the sheriff's collective bargaining. So it's really, we're not really amending the education reimbursement policy. We're
All right.
amending those. We're doing an
Correct.
MOU for the collective
So
bargaining.
can we change the language of this resolution request then
Yes.
in order to
The
reflect what you
resolution
just
will,
said?
yeah, the resolution will come out saying what I said.
What you just said, not what this says. Okay. I just want to be clear because I am disappointed, I just don't want to hold up the process of anyone that would be eligible in the
Oh.
sheriff's office.
So any other questions? Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you. Our intent last year was to make it smoother and easier for people to get the reimbursement money throughout the county, not to exclude anyone. So I don't want to amend our policy. It should be making that inclusive of the sheriff's office.
All right.
So I make the motion that Amanda said. If
What
no
she
one's
said.
put that on the table yet.
You have.
Yeah.
other documents.
Okay, yep. So we have a motion and a second. We have discussion. Any other questions? Motion to move it forward with the amendment as described by Amanda. All in favor? Okay, we we'll do second on this one because we amended it. Motion by Supervisor Diamond, second on the amended motion. Supervisor Bramer. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. And there's one last enter into an agreement with Chicks Marina for routine service and emergency repairs to sheriff office patrol vessels.
Yes, this is our annual agreement with Chicks Marina for our summer startup and winterization storage of each of our patrol vessels.
Motion to move this forward, Supervisor Seaver. Second, Supervisor Diamond. Any discussion or question on the matter? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Sheriff, you've got two discussion items. I believe one, we requested you to come back with an update on Sheriff's Office reform progress.
Yes. June 2020, the governor issued Executive Order 2003 outlining expectations for law enforcement agencies across the state to reform and improve the way we conduct business and police. And January of 2020, under Sheriff Como and I and our administrative team, we really started to do this process without the need for an executive order. We've explained to all of you that we eat, sleep, and breathe by community policing, procedural justice, really just taking care of the residents and visitors to our county. We did follow the governor's order. We came up with a very comprehensive plan, and we made some specific commitments to all of you and to all of our residents. And I believe, and I hope that all of you are feeling through your constituents that we are receiving high marks in how we responded and how we've made our improvements. To go through specifically, just the commitments that we made, we touched on restorative practices. And We've been meeting with Liza Oschendorf to establish restorative practices in our county. And COVID has had us slowed down somewhat. You know, we have not had the ability to gather, but we are moving forward with this program. This is, as well as many others, unfortunately, when you get into these certain practices, we are a stakeholder, we'll have a seat at the table, but they're not something that we can take a lead on. So we are moving forward, we are active participants, and I have the utmost confidence in Liza and her abilities and where this will go. We are working towards having a crisis intervention team and in Warren County, and I would think it's really safe to say really across New York State, one of the biggest issues that we face is mental health. And in law enforcement, how do we serve and address and assist people who are struggling with mental health crisis? Crisis intervention is something that it would, if there was an emergency and there was a need for us to respond late at night, we would respond as a team, and there would be mental health providers, there would be various clinicians, social workers that could all collaborate at the same time. And we are not there yet. Again, we are stakeholders, we have a seat at the table, but we are active and we would like to see this move forward. I know Rob York and his office, they've implemented a pilot program called LEMERS, Law Enforcement Addiction Mental Health Referral System. Something like this, if you haven't done so, I would encourage you to reach out, because this is where we really need to dig our heels in. This referral system allows our officers to make an immediate referral. If somebody contacts our sheriff's office and they need addiction services, they need mental health services, we have the ability to make an immediate referral to several of these teams. The system's limited. If a referral comes through at 4:05 in the afternoon on Friday, there's a 24 to 48 hour time period when they're going to respond, but that's 24 to 48 business hours. So a person in need's not going to receive a response until Monday afternoon, maybe Tuesday sometime. And for us, if a person's in crisis, that's just not fast enough. I want to say that the reason that there is such a delay, it goes right down to budgets and dollars and cents and staffing and all the expenses that go into these programs. So what we put back and ask of you is, people call law enforcement when their families are in need, but we're not trained and equipped. I think it's time that all of us come together collectively and try to figure out a way that we have more immediate and active access to mental health and addiction care specialists on a Friday evening, on a weekend, not just during business hours.
Time for a question. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. This is great. I'm glad to hear this. I know that the city police department is already moving forward with some mental health services that will be provided on some sort of rotating basis. So I'm wondering if you connected with them.
I
And
met with the
also,
chief. This was part of what I was just sharing.
okay, that
and
you are working with the chief.
We
okay.
are, yes. And it's a start, it's a pilot, but I would encourage all of you to get out, see what it actually, how it works. And there are areas where we could improve, but it's expensive. And, you know, I'm not suggesting that if you have someone who has suicidal ideology and the family's calling and they're requesting help, that we send a social worker in without law enforcement assistance or protection. But we need to work together, because when law enforcement responds, we're setting our police officers up for failure. We are not social workers. We want to try to do what we can to keep that person, their families and others safe, but they are really in need of mental health assistance, not assistance from police.
Supervisor Bramer.
I agree with that too. I think there definitely needs to be a partnership there. And one of the things that we saw through our public survey when we did this in the fall about ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan funding money, is how much of a need there was for mental health assistance. So I would encourage the sheriff's office to put in a proposal for ARPA money. We still haven't seen that, to respond on mental health. That
I'm
would be
gonna,
a great, I think I'm only one person, only one supervisor on this board, but as co-chair of ARPA, I think that would be well received.
that completely contradicts what I'm suggesting, though. The mental health portion can't come from us. We are not mental health providers. What I'm suggesting is that we get the mental health services to assist us during the time of response, not just during business hours, to provide something where our residents, we don't need in our sheriff's office to have the mental health response. We need to have the mental health provider support us 24/7. And I agree with you. I think if there is ARPA funding that could support that, we're behind it 200%. I know through COVID, many have been isolated. Addiction is up, overdoses are up, domestic violence is up, and we are greatly in need of these services. So there's certainly a nexus between COVID, ARPA, and this need. But so much has happened through this executive order and in our profession that people are turning towards law enforcement. You can give us all the money you want, but we're not going to be able to help our residents with mental health.
I'm just to follow up, I'm not talking about training the officers. I'm talking about having mental health providers with the officers. So, but we can talk about that.
But I don't know why the sheriff's office would be the one to propose that. Maybe Rob York's office
I was
or,
gonna say, we have an office of mental health.
Yes.
Okay, Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. I have two questions.
Hmm?
The first being, I know when we spoke about this before, questions came up about crisis response teams with the hospital or with some other outside entities, and the ability to be able to contract with them. And you, I think you said you were going to look into what services were already in place in the community, particularly like the Albany model, where they do respond out of the hospital. Have you had any
we have
follow up on that?
no services in Warren County that assist us 24/7. It's whether it's through the hospital, Northern Rivers. There are no organizations that are local that can come out. If we had a call, an emergency on a Saturday night, that can send a social worker, caseworker out to
Right.
provide us immediate assistance.
Okay, so you have confirmed that. So then I guess that brings me to my next question, which, you know, as you continue to talk about the MOU from the first action item here today that was discussed, wouldn't entering into an MOU, and forgive me, do you have an MOU like this with Washington and Essex County as well, with their sheriff's offices?
We do not. The only reason we have it with Saratoga is they requested it.
So is that something you'll be exploring to see if that's model? I mean, why just Saratoga? Why not also Washington and Essex?
They asked, so we're going to be good neighbors and we're going to accommodate their request. Like I explained to Supervisor Diamond, if Sheriff Murphy called and he needed assistance right now, whatever resources, manpower, staffing we can provide, we're going to provide.
But the reason I asked that in context of this discussion is, wouldn't it also be likely then that because Saratoga does have a 24/7 response team, that by entering into that MOU, would they then be able to assist us when that need comes up?
I can't speak for the mental health providers that are offering assistance in Saratoga County. I wouldn't want to say that they could travel from Ballston Spa or wherever they are to go to North River to assist us. It's 45 minutes for us to
Right.
drive here to North River. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that would be a good question. Again, when it comes to this executive order, so many are focused on the sheriff and the chief of police in Glens Falls.
Right.
And I can only control what I can control. I can't control
Sure.
what any of these organizations are doing or the services they're providing. I don't know why people keep looking at our agency to affect
Can
this
bring me to
change.
my third question.
You know, I do not say no. If you don't know that of me, I don't say no. If we have an organization that wants to collaborate, that wants
Right.
to work, that wants to partner, we are here and we are willing, but we can't
Right.
compel these organizations to provide this assistance or this service to the county residents.
Sure. And I'm not suggesting that we do. What I'm suggesting is perhaps you do ask Saratoga County in the context of this MOU, if they would be willing to assist us in the meantime, as we're getting, you know, different ideas and programs, and perhaps after this discussion, some interest through the ARPA committee. But if we're going to have an MOU like that, it would make sense to me that should that need arise and it be truly that critical, that crisis moment, that if we're going to have an MOU, I think it should state in there that they will, you know, that it be reciprocal like that. But
For the
on,
crisis intervention or the sheriff's office, because we don't need their patrol officers to respond to provide us with mental health support. They're not going to provide anything additional beyond what our officers provide. And I'm not going to ask a Saratoga County mental health organization to provide a service in Warren County.
I
I'm
thought
not
you
sure what
just
you're
said you
asking.
never say no.
We can't. I
No,
mean,
what
that's-
I'm asking specifically is if the sheriff has an arrangement with a mental health or a crisis response service in their department already. And if
Okay.
they do, it would make sense to me that if we're entering into that MOU, that they wouldn't mind assisting in a moment of need, which is exactly why I'm sure they came to you and asked for some help in terms of a municipal agreement. But that being maybe, and perhaps that's something the county attorney's office should look at in terms of the MOU itself, you know, by entering into it, are we also able to take advantage of some of those other best practices that they have within their sheriff's office? But really, my point of this entire discussion is to ask you about an opportunity then. I understand that you're saying this proposal, this discussion item isn't to talk about law enforcement having the skills or the resources or the outreach to answer 24/7. No one's asking you to do that within your department, but you and I on multiple occasions have talked about a victim assistance program. And by looking at a program within your office that would provide crisis intervention, you could do a victim/witness crisis response team that could be a division within the sheriff's office, which I think is long overdue, very much needed, and could come from not only grant funding, but ARPA dollars to get that started.
We would
Is
love that. I mean, if that's your area of expertise and it's something you would want to take on, we would be happy to partner with you. Again, these aren't things that I can't make these things happen. It's outside my wheelhouse.
But many other sheriff's offices do have those programs. So maybe looking at a couple of those sheriff's offices that do have them, I'm sure the Sheriff's Association.
Do they
can give you a
compete with the
list.
programs like in
No,
the
it's a
DA's
different
office?
function. And you could design this to be whatever function. I'm sorry, I'm having a very informal dialogue about this and I don't mean to. But you could design that program to, particularly with the grants or the application through ARPA, to work the way you want it to work, where you see the need in Warren County in terms of the gaps in services. And part of that's just hiring the right person to develop and run and apply for those grants. I mean, if that's a need that there is in the sheriff's
We
office.
absolutely have a need. I don't know that the best location for it's within our sheriff's office. You have a county mental health organization that's run by a director, Rob York. I don't know why you wouldn't want this type of an office to be under his
Yeah.
supervision. That's his wheelhouse. I don't know anything
Yeah.
about it. It goes back to like wanting the sheriff to oversee
Okay.
EMS on a countywide level. I don't understand EMS protocols, quality of care. I mean,
It's the same idea the DA's office has with their victim program. You know, they hire specialists who are experts in that area. It's housed within a department, so they don't have to worry about the confidentiality issues that the Office for Mental Health would in working with
we
your
need
office.
immediate 24/7 crisis intervention. And to put things in perspective, they're not moments. This is happening all the time, every day. There's a mental health component to probably, I don't want to just throw out a random number, but the majority of what we respond to each day.
Okay.
And the need is great in Warren County. I'm going to say to you, the best place to have this service or organization is not within our sheriff's office. If I'm selecting the person to oversee it, I'm putting trust into something that I don't know, and I have to go by their guidance, where if you have it through Rob York or an organization like that, that knows this, that this is what they do, they're going to know if they have a good person, if they got a sound program, if they're receiving good advice from this person that they put in charge of things. I won't know any of that.
Okay, may I make a suggestion then that we schedule a time for Rob York to come in and speak with our committee about this topic? And also maybe our county administrator could do a little bit of research with the Sheriff's Association and the Chiefs of Police Association with those PDs and those sheriff's offices that do have programs or collaborate with entities that have them. Could we get a little bit of a background on what's possible so that we can address a need that the sheriff has brought to our attention as the Oversight Board of Supervisors, and get that information from the administrator and in preparation for Rob York's meeting?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Sheriff, did you have?
I've got a whole list, but I don't know how long you want me to continue with our report card. I can stop. I can meet with supervisors independently.
I think we have a feel for, what you're relaying to us. I know you want an executive session also for an item.
If I may.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure. I would suggest that, if you feel there's something else significant in reference to where you are with police reform, I mean, feel free to relay it now or the next meeting. I think we can pick up on this.
I will share with all of you and the public who's listening, we are always reforming. We're always improving. We're looking to provide the best service possible. And I've said this to community organizations, persons, supervisors. If you ever want to talk and have a coffee and we'll go over and share our report card with you, listen to suggestions. I think if nothing else, we have a good dialogue that got started today, and I'm excited to have some progress. We need these services for our residents. And again, I'm going to have a seat at this table, but it's just outside of my area of expertise.
Thank you. Sheriff, just before we move to executive session at your request, I have one late starter item. And I don't want to have a discussion on it now. I just want to relay it to you. I think the storms last week, at least up in the north end of the county, where we got a couple feet of snow, heavy snow that took power lines down. We were out without power for at least 2 days, some people 3 days. It reinforced a great concern of mine of the inability to have two-way communication with our residents. And to have some form of a communications system that in these types of situations, we're able to communicate what the emergency is, where relief is, you need water, where you can get it, those kind of things. So I don't want to, again, I don't want to have a discussion today about this, but for the next committee meeting, if you could work with our Director of Emergency Services and determine what we currently have. I know that we have something in place. I don't know what that something exactly is and how well it works or what we need for the future. But I would ask you to work with Anne Marie, and then maybe the both of you can decide who can relay, the best position to relay to us what's in existence and make a recommendation for the future.
Yes,
That
sir.
this is not just a countywide delivery system, but if we needed something in any one of our communities, could we drill it down to just that community and send out that message, right? We have road closures, people weren't aware of it. It's really concerning, and it's something that we should all really address for the future. So I would ask you to take that up for the next committee meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Accept a motion to move to executive session.
If I
Oh,
can.
I'm sorry.
It seems to me that the executive session is going to be conducted pursuant to Public Officers Law 105A, matters which will imperil the public safety if disclosed. Am I correct?
Yes.
Supervisor Brammer?
Thanks. I hate to throw a monkey wrench in this, but I'd like to just have this discussion on the public record as much as possible.
Well, we have a motion to move to executive session. And
If,
describe what the issue is.
Looking at me to respond?
Yeah.
I would suggest that maybe we touch on it a little bit in executive session when we open. If you want me to speak more to it, to the public, I can address as much or as little as you'd like me to address. There's just a couple of specific points that I think are best for executive session. But if I'm speaking in error and you'd prefer me to share everything publicly, we'll do that. We'll speak in executive session briefly and come out.
Supervisor Seaver.
I just, in accordance with what our county attorney just read in terms of the reasons to go into executive session, does the little bit that you want to talk about in executive fall within that definition of public safety,
Yes.
a risk?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to move to executive session.
I'll make the motion
Supervisor Brammer, second.
willingly.
Second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. We can,
You are live on YouTube.
okay, thank you. We're out of executive session, back to our regular meeting. We just finished an executive session, a discussion of public safety and security items. Any other discussion on this? All right, we'll move to the sheriff. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your discussion. Move to privilege of the floor. Anyone here? Anyone online? Okay, just before we make a motion to adjourn, I would ask the committee, I know there was when we came out of executive session, a summary of what we discussed regarding the personnel matter. Just want to make sure that the committee agrees that we want to move a candidate's name forward to the personnel committee. Correct? Anybody disagree? All right, Ryan, is that sufficient?
Sure. Did we want to hold on the name or did we want to do the name today?
I don't think we want to do a name in public.
No, our practice has always been to get board approval before we announce any acceptance or declinations, and also do a reference and background. And we never want someone to read in the paper that they were selected or not selected. So I think it's premature.
Agree. Any other comments on that? Okay, right.
Okay.
Good. Motion to adjourn. Supervisor Seaver, second. Supervisor Brammer, any discussion on a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you all for your time and patience. Greatly appreciated.